All right, let's dive into a puzzle that has pretty much defined the last few years for, well, everyone. When the world's supply chains get hit by one crisis after another, how is it that some companies seem to innovate their way through it and pull ahead, while so many others just get stuck? Well, based on some fascinating research, we're going to unpack the leadership secrets that make all the difference. And look, this isn't just some abstract business school question, right? It's something we've all felt. You go to the store, and that one shelf is just empty. You order something online, and that delivery date just keeps slipping. It's super frustrating for us, but for businesses, it can be a total knockout blow. So, what is the secret sauce for thriving in all this chaos? The research we're digging into today points a finger at a very clear cause: the massive geopolitical events we've all been living through. Think about the US-China trade tensions, the logistical nightmare that was Brexit, or the huge disruptions from the war in Ukraine. These aren't just little hiccups. They are earthquakes that send shockwaves through the entire global system. To get specific, there's a term for this: geopolitical disruption. The research basically defines it as any big event, from a trade war to a diplomatic dispute, that just throws a massive wrench in the works, messing up the normal, predictable flow of everything. It creates uncertainty, it drives up costs, and it puts this immense pressure on companies to either adapt or, fail. So to find the real answer, a team of researchers went out and surveyed 247 different firms, specifically in manufacturing and distribution. They wanted to see, using actual data, what separates the companies that can innovate through the chaos from the ones that get swamped. And what they found was this critical, undeniable link between disruption, innovation, and one single factor: leadership. So let's start with the first piece of the puzzle they uncovered, because before you can find a solution, you really have to understand the problem. And it turns out the problem is incredibly clear. The study confirmed what a lot of people probably suspected. All these disruptions have a direct, significant, and very negative impact on a company's ability to innovate its logistics. I mean, it makes sense. When you're constantly just fighting fires, dealing with delays, crazy costs, suppliers vanishing, you just don't have the resources or the brainpower left over for big, new ideas. Disruption literally drains the lifeblood out of progress. Okay, so that's the bad news. But it also sets up the most important question of all. If geopolitical disruption is the poison that's killing innovation, then what in the world is the antidote? What can leaders actually do to protect their teams and keep their company moving forward? And this is where the research gets really, really cool. The study didn't just stop at identifying the problem, it actually pinpointed the solution. And it all comes down to the specific ways that leaders lead during a crisis. The data showed that 3 specific leadership styles act like a powerful shield against all this chaos. First up, you've got crisis leadership, which is all about swift, smart action. Then there's participative leadership, which is about bringing the whole team into the decision-making process. And finally, transformational leadership, which is about inspiring a shared vision. These 3 together are the antidote. And get this isn't just some feel-good theory. The impact is direct, and it's measurable. The research says that companies with these kinds of leaders experience a diminished negative impact. In other words, the right leadership style acts as a genuine buffer, protecting a company's ability to innovate even when the world outside is going completely haywire. But wait, because this story has a pretty big twist. The researchers also tested another leadership style, one that, honestly, a lot of us would assume is exactly what you need in a crisis. And the results? Well, they were not what anyone expected. I mean, think about it. In an emergency, don't you want a take-charge kind of leader? Someone who just gives clear orders and expects everyone to follow them, no questions asked. That top-down command and control thing, it feels like it would be the most efficient way to handle a crisis, right? While the data delivered a huge surprise. Nope. The study found that what they call directive leadership, that whole top-down approach, had no discernible effect on softening the blow from disruption. All that commanding and controlling did absolutely nothing to help companies innovate. It didn't help. It didn't hurt. It was just irrelevant. So let's be super clear on what we're talking about. Directive leadership is that classic my way or the highway approach. The leader expects you to follow instructions to the letter, they watch you like a hawk, and they make all the important decisions by themselves. And the research shows that when a crisis gets really complex and unpredictable, this style just completely falls flat. It suffocates the very creativity you need to survive. Now let's compare that to a style that did work: participative leadership.
Instead of shutting people down, these leaders pull them in. They're constantly asking for ideas, sharing information, and they get that the best solutions often come from the team that's actually on the front lines, not just the boss in the office. And that third hero style, transformational leadership, gives everyone the why. These leaders don't just manage a to-do list, they paint a really compelling picture of the future. They actively look for different points of view, and they challenge their people to get better, to grow. They build a team that wants to innovate, instead of a team that just does what it's told. So after digging through all this data, a really clear picture starts to form about what leadership needs to look like in our modern, chaotic world. Let's wrap this up with the ultimate takeaway. Here's the bottom line. When the world is unpredictable, that old model of the top-down, all-knowing boss is completely broken. Real power, the power to innovate, doesn't come from giving perfect orders. It comes from empowering your team, from communicating openly, and from inspiring everybody with a shared vision of where you're all going together. That's what builds a company that's resilient and innovative. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. Take a look around your own organization, your own team. In these turbulent times, is your leadership focused on building a collaborative, empowered team, or are they just giving orders? Because the answer to that question might just decide who makes it through and who gets left behind.